This episode contains strong language and adult themes. Viewer and listener discretion is advised. It's lights, it's camera, it's action, it's time for tonight's 22 Dropouts, your favourite YouTube show and podcast all about rugby. But you know that already because you're watching it or you're listening to it. But don't forget, we are on your social media, on your YouTube, your Twitter or your Instagram. Just go and search at 22 Dropouts and join in the fun. Make sure you check out our back catalogue and all of our outtakes as well. Now, we are more like the goal line 11 tonight rather than the 22 dropouts. We're a little bit depleted, but we do welcome James from Inverness, now that he's got his internet working again.
No star.
Yeah, it's a bit slow, as you can tell. Chris, who's not far away.
Hello. Can I just say, that was probably one of the best intros that you had at the start. Probably one of the best ones you've actually done, and then you messed it up. You just lost your words. And you fucked
No,
it.
actually, it's the best one I've done because you haven't fucking interrupted me. Which you normally do. In fact, before we introduce our other guy, did you see last week's show opening? With Sam and his daughter slamming the cupboard doors. I had to leave that in the show. He has been spewing all the Sam, and to your lovely family. And now, all the way from the US of A, we welcome the man himself. It is POTUS. It is it's Phil. Phil Klevorick, isn't it?
Yeah, Klevorick. Hey, listen, you guys got all these funny accents.
No. You're the one with the funny accent, Sunshine. So how are you? Tell us a bit about yourself, because we've not seen you on the show before.
Well, I've had several invitations. It just hasn't worked out to get on the show. So I appreciate the invitation at all. So first of all, I'm coming to you live from Las Vegas. And, I love my town. Been here for 20 some odd years. So, rugby is what's bringing us together, right?
Oh, hell yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. Rugby's a thing, and refereeing as well. And I've got to say... Right, this is the guy who runs Back 10 Pros in the States. He's the guy we all should be bowing down to right now, because he's the one that invites us all over to the States to work on the tournaments over there. Yeah,
You might not be worthy, Chris, but we are.
All I know is that you're putting me up on some high pedestal. I'm not sure if I want to fall off it or embrace it.
We'll hold you up there, son. We'll hold you up there. So look, listen, for those people that we know have heard the Sevens referee, mainly because the only people who watch this show are the ones that work with us, and then it's only about half of them anyway. But Back 10 Pros does something very, very, all 7 of them. Back 10 Pros does something very, very similar in the States, which is how we came to be connected, wasn't it?
Yeah, so Back 10 Pros is actually a professional attempt on professionalizing match officials and event management. And it's not just in the United States. We've actually done events in Canada and in South America as well. And we're working on building that whole product across several entities and countries that are needing and wanting to help develop a professional service. So it's not for everybody, but it's to help improve the expectations for the service providers and needs and the clients. So, when we're looking at doing things, we want to make sure that we're bringing in the right level of officiating, right level of management and service, and fair enough, right, and development. So it goes right back to any other professional environment that you want to operate, work in, whether you're an accountant or you're in engineering, whatever it is, what you want to try to achieve. And what we're trying to do is change the paradigm on what amateur expectations are and trying to professionalize them and bring a higher level of expectation to the community. That's what we're doing.
And you work like we do all throughout community rugby, through collegiate rugby, high school, sevens tournaments, 15s, working with societies, you help and develop and bring people along and try and give them those opportunities, don't you?
Right. So a lot of it is actually, it starts at the youth level. We're launching some youth programs this year. This COVID-19 has got everything messed up right in the United States. We haven't had literally any live sports since March. So our predominant 15 season goes from March until May, and our 7 season starts in May and goes till, let's say September. None of that's going to happen this year. So it's kind of thrown a wrench into the whole thing. So we've had to back off on a lot of our plans, but at the same time, we're implementing our strategy into implementation when the community opens up. And it's not going to be opened up across the country. It'll be opened up in regions. There's not going to be any rugby in northern tiers in the United States because it's going to be winter.
Yeah, well, you see things like in Canada they struggle, don't they? They have a big break in their season. They start and then they take a break and then they carry on again afterwards once everybody's finished with seal fishing or ice ball or something like that, or whatever they do up there. A bit weird, aren't they, Canadians?
Ice fishing and tobogganing.
I wonder if you could combine the two and have a really fun sport.
Yes, we have.
I was going to say that there's a marketing opportunity there for us, Phil.
If there's any way of combining
good sponsor.
Canadians already figured it out. I used to run a rugby tournament, a rugby game. It wasn't even a tournament. It was a rugby game in British Columbia, and I'm talking the early mid-90s, where everybody. I go out to the field, and there'll be probably 2 to 5 meters of snow on it, but it's compacted in February. And I take orange spray paint, and I would outline the field and the pitch, right? And then we would take a rugby ball painted orange because it would get lost in the snow, and everybody would start out wearing snowshoes and a snowmobile suit. And within probably 10 playing of running along, the snowshoes would come off, the snowmobile suits would come off, because by that time now your body temperature is warmed up.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. I'm looking at the guys on the call here right now, and I'm looking my lower left, which is Chris, right? He's probably the fastest guy on this call. So all he had to do was get within 6 feet of me, and I would step on his snowshoe. He would go, tackle.
Now, we don't just have one guy who has a song at the moment. We've actually got 2. And so I'm going to show you this. Now, do you notice this guy down? Look at this guy down here, who happens to be the same guy here. He's clever. And look, he's over there. He's over there as well. You wouldn't believe this, but Chris has got a single out on Spotify with his band, Greg Murray, and here it is.
Whenever you want to, whenever you feel the need, hold on tight to. All you need is me, cold heart. Cool everything down. Kinda single, kinda taking up, move a mountain, always looking up to you. I've always looked up to you. Time has come to listen with your heart. So keep your head up, torn apart. I lost it all when I give up.
there you go.
Look,
there
tell me
you go.
about it.
Chris is an internet star, not just for this show, but he's got a single out. Chris, where can people buy? Yeah, give him a round of it. All right, that's it. We're not American. It's enough. So
You know what? I'm going to give him a standing ovation for that.
Oh God!
Yeah, we're giving him a round of applause. Chris, where can people get your? Tell us about it. Come on.
So it's actually my old maths teacher from my old college is a songwriter. He doesn't have the foggiest about music theory. He just goes to me, play this for me, fella, and I have to play it. But he is an absolutely superb songwriter, as you can tell. We only do original music, and we've just been picked up by a label. So that is our first properly produced and mastered single by Abbey Road, no less, called Bought a Ring. And we have got an album coming out soon. Don't know when.
So what sort of stuff is it then?
It's I still don't know how to describe it. I've been in the band for 2 years,
See,
and I can't put my finger on where it actually goes in the music spectrum. I think we fall under alternative folk.
I was going to say, what you need there is a couple of banjos.
Yeah, no.
Well, there's plenty of
I
them
come
round
from
the league.
Alabama with the banjo on my knee.
There's plenty of them round the league. They've got enough fingers.
No, they don't have as many fingers, mate. They're all
Banjo doesn't
conjoined.
go like that.
Fingers and thumbs, 6 of each.
It is available on all streaming services, and it is on YouTube.
Very good. And if somebody wanted to download it, where can they get it from? How much does it cost?
It's absolutely free on all streaming services. If you've got premium accounts on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, it's absolutely free to download. It's on iTunes. I think it's 99p, but I couldn't tell you.
Oh, right. Well done.
So get a premium account. Get a premium account on the music thing, and
you know
it's
what?
absolutely free to download.
Do you know what? Because of that, I'm going to raise my beer. And it is, as you know, we are supporting the Doddy Weir Foundation. My name's Doddy, and 5p from every can of this genius craft lager goes to the Doddy Weir Foundation. So I'm going to raise my 5p donation, and POTUS is going to raise one of his sponsors, and James is just going to drink his orange juice. And here's to you, here's to Greg and the Seven Wonders. Is the Seven Wonders a little bit like the Seven Dwarfs?
I think we're going for Wonders of the World, but to be honest, Dopey suits me down to the ground, doesn't it? So yeah.
Somebody's going to have to put subtitles on this call because I can't keep up with what you guys are saying.
That's okay, because normally when Sam's on, we can't understand Sam because of his jock accent. We have to lip read.
Yeah, to confirm, you guys are sober, right?
Yeah.
I am. Mike probably isn't.
Rarely.
That's like the Seven Dwarfs in the bath, all feeling happy. After got out and they all felt grumpy.
I was looking. It's funny you guys are talking about the Seven Wonders. I was looking at an article that was sent to me on Saturday or Sunday, and it was talking about the 7 natural wonders in Nevada. And of course, there was 4 of them that were constructed.
only in America. Only in America.
I'm not sure if they're natural wonders.
So, listen, I know we sort of digressed a little bit. We went well off tangent, so much so that, Christ, I can't remember what we were talking about. But we were talking about all of the stuff that was going on in the States. And Phil was telling us just how many of those have been cancelled. And, the guys from Sevens Ref, most of us on the show, even those that can't be here, we were supposed to have been over in the States 3 times by now, weren't we, with the Tropicals, with Salt Lake and Denver. It's just decimated rugby, hasn't it?
Yeah, sadly, it's all sports, right? It's been decimating across all sports. But for us, we had the Tropical Sevens playing in Orlando in April, and then we had the Salt Lake City in 2 weeks' time, or a week time, and that's canceled, obviously. Denver, and the Salute the Service tournament in Vegas, the end of October. I haven't made an official announcement on it yet, but it's going to be really hard just to get that even put in some kind of level of execution. So more than likely, that's probably going to get canceled here in a couple of weeks. It's really, really sad and hard.
It's still good weather in January, though, isn't it, mate, in Vegas?
Compared to
anywhere else in the world. Okay, compare it to here.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. It'll be sunny, and it'll be somewhere around 10 to 15 degrees, maybe 18 degrees during the day, and it'll be about 2 or 3 degrees above freezing at night.
Let's make it February, and we're coming over for a month. How's that?
Hey.
4 tournaments, 4 weeks.
Yeah. I mean,
an education plan.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about MLR and everything a little bit later, but the MLR season gets going in January, preseason, and then the actual season gets going in February, so tentatively, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it's time we took a commercial break, mainly because we need to get back to some sort of normality afterwards. We're going to go and recharge our glasses. We'll see you with one of tonight's special guests, Matt Leek from the Rugby Players Association, in just a couple of minutes. Welcome back to the 22 Dropouts, and we apologise for part 1. We don't know what happened either, so we can't expect you to know what happened. Of course, we are your favourite YouTube show and podcast talking about everything rugby. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. Just search hashtag or @22dropouts. Now, tonight we've got a lot of new faces. Not only have we got the President of the United States, thank you, although we found out in the break he is actually a Mountie from Canada, 30 years or so as a Canadian mounted policeman.
Yeah, so you guys all behave yourself.
Fucking too right.
That's how I know how to salute.
Good lad. That's good. That's because you're part of the Commonwealth. Well done.
Watching
absolutely.
Benny Hill growing up.
Yeah.
Watching him, I thought you were him. Now, we've also been joined by one of our good mates from Sevens Ref, and it's Wayne. And he's grown. He's definitely grown.
It's Wayne. That's all you need to say.
Yeah,
sure.
Listen, if you've ever been on anything with us, if you've ever been on any of our tournaments, you'll know Wayne. He's the one that is behind everything. So when we have the team photo, he's the one that's nudging me, and the photo is taken as I'm falling over. He's the one that, as you saw from about 4 episodes ago, instigated me getting covered in buckets of ice at the end of the 6
I don't know what you're on about. It was not me.
Of course
he's the one who, during a group photo with Chester 7, decided he'd go and pull my leg out.
Anyway, Wayne, how are you doing, bud?
Getting there, mate, getting there.
Good.
Ups and downs.
Good. So, COVID beard, talk me through that. It weighs more than you do, that does.
Yeah, it does, actually, mate. I must admit, it does.
It's better than mine was, bud. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, did you see his attempt at a COVID beard?
Yes.
Yes. Lee said, soonest mended. And we'll come back to Wayne in a bit. But joining us as well, looking bored and going, what the fuck am I into? In fact, if I go onto WhatsApp now, he's probably going, Mike, let me out of here. And I won't.
That's just me.
No, literally every guest that turns up comes on, and we spend probably 2 or 3 minutes with them before we come back to you, dear viewers and listeners. And they spend that entire couple of minutes going, what the fuck? What's going on? I've got no idea. Because we just carry on the shit from part 1 and all the shit that you lot don't see. But he sees it, which is why he now looks like he's trying to cross a zebra crossing and the bus is not going to stop, that's going to hit him and kill him. But Matt looks like he could tackle the London bus and the taxi at the same time. He looks like a strong lad down there, and he should be, because he's been at the Dragons, he's been at Worcester, Bath, and Sarries with the other Matt Leek, not this Matt Leek, but the other Matt Leek. Yeah. And he's been around the block, and now he works for the RPA, the Rugby Players Association, don't you, Matt?
Yeah. So thank you very much for the introduction. Thanks for the slightly bonkers interlude earlier as well. But yeah, thanks for having me on. And I suppose you just talked about the other Matt Leek as well. Yeah, so I think he was far better looking, far better player, and much more successful than I was. So I was probably one of those players that was very, was all right when I was younger. I was a bit of a workhorse, and I've had more academies or more academy clubs than Tiger Woods' golf clubs, I think. So I don't really say successful academy rugby player, but I've had an experienced academy rugby player, as we say. So I was part of the Saracens Academy. I was very much county rugby, and Saracens, I remember it was like an advert in Rugby World at the time. It was like, well, come along to Mill Hill School, under 14 and 15 trials, I think it was. And my old man was taking me out there once a month for training. That was amazing, because that was the first time you sort of having training. Academy manager then was like Bob Crooks. You had like Richard Hill there, Terry Lacroix, and Dan Luger, and Thomas Cassignad. And you're thinking,
wow,
that's a big line.
Hang on. Just drop a few more names in there, shall we?
Yeah, I'm dropping it. Man. This is the best story from my old man.
Like your artillery bombs.
my old man would say the story now. So Saracens were training at the old Bramley Road, Green Road at that time, and my dad always remembers when Francois Pienaar was in. And my dad will say, look, I remember going into the loos, dropping you off and having a piss next to Francois Pienaar, and he was thinking, that's his typical party line.
So your dad's claim to fame is he looked at Francois Pienaar's dick.
Yeah. I was very quiet about it. So,
fair. Yeah.
So that's his one-liner. So you remember that. And then I suppose I was fortunate enough, went to Colston School, which you can tell by my accent, I was local to it anyway. I was at state school, but went to Colston School for the sixth form. They were obviously with Bath at the time, had that link with Bath. It was like they were the nursery of Bath rugby. Again, they had far better rugby players than me. A couple of years above me was Gareth Delve and Ollie Barkley, and then the year below me, I suppose were the superstars. So the likes of Jordan Crane, Tom Windell, Shane Geraghty, Ryan Davis, Chris Brooker. I'm name dropping again, but they were an absolute unreal.
You've probably still played more years of rugby than Tom Windell has, anyway.
He's still going. He's still going.
He makes the odd appearance on the Super Series that we officiate at. Yeah, but that's about it.
So he's still a lot quicker than me.
He's a lot quicker than me, I can tell you that much.
And he was quicker than you, Mike.
So, yeah.
Fuck off.
I got no comment.
Although I have to say, I did try and chase Colin Isles once in Dubai when he took off. Yeah, he showed a clean pair of heels and he went. And I went after him, and I'll tell you what, after about 10 metres, I'm going, where the fuck is he? It's like Top Gun. Do you remember that line in Top Gun where he goes, watch the mountains, and the Rio goes, what mountains? It was like that. It's like, watch the player. What player? I fucking ran my arse off. And after the game, he came and he shook my hand in the tunnel, and he went, nice effort. Like, I don't know whether that's a compliment or like, yeah, fuck you. Colin,
That's an American attitude.
Yeah, Colin, if that's a compliment, cheers, son.
He means very nice, even to you, Mike.
No, he is, and I saw him again at as Wayne and Chris will know, at Chester at the series warm up last year, and he is a true gent. He's lovely, isn't he, to chat to?
There's a brilliant photo from Chester of him in line with me, getting the ball on the wing, and I've moved about 2 meters, and he's moved about 10. I'm blowing out of my arsehole, head down, like trying to pump to catch up to him, and he's gone.
I'll name drop one more. So the best player we had, I don't know if it was a Canadian. We had a Canadian guy there. He came over for 3 months.
Do they have any?
And they went, a guy called Michael Pike.
Pikey.
Michael Pike. So he left and went to.
Look at that. I like that, mate. I like that. That's respect, you know.
So you can imagine, right, I think we're about 18. This guy comes over, because we had the American tour in the middle of my first and second year of sixth form there. And this guy came back over a couple of weeks after we scored. A guy called Michael Pike. He went on to play for Edinburgh, I think, a French team, and then he played for Canada before he played for Colston. He was an Aussie rules footballer. He was an incredible athlete. And it just, that sort of thing really opened my eyes.
Like most Canadians.
he was phenomenal. He was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. One of the best athletes I've ever played with. And what a bloke as well.
So never mind all these other people, Matt. Tell us what happened to you and how you're working at the RPA.
So obviously went to Worcester. I remember being at a sort of academy deal there. And then that's the first year before they even went to the Premiership. So that's 2003, 2004. In there in the senior academy there. Went there for a year. Found out I wasn't good enough. And then I went on I'm looking down now. So I went on a trip with about 10 other rugby lads to Malia and Crete, all from Worcester. And then I remember getting a phone call. Maybe that's on a Tuesday. I'll be honest. I was hung over on a beach in Malia, and then got a phone call to say, "Oh look, from I did some Welsh representative rugby when I was younger." A guy there, he said, "Oh look, this is the second year of a regional, a region we've got. Would you fancy coming over and seeing how it goes and trying it out?" Absolutely fantastic. No, so I think that was the Monday or Tuesday. I was back in sunny Rodney Parade on the Thursday, probably looking pale, pasty, even heavier than I am now. I was thinking, there's no chance they're gonna look at me. And then I met a guy there who Alan Davis, who's like they called him the ace at the time, who was the kind of the role I do now, and he was absolutely fantastic. So he said, "Look, at that time I had this sort of image in my head going, I'm going to be a professional rugby player." So I thought I was really good I was all right as a youngster.
Pyramid gets narrower as it goes towards the top.
Yeah, I was all right. I was all right for my year group around Bristol and Bath, and maybe the Southwest. But then you throw in everything else, and you step into a men's game, and you're with everyone else, and you're with all different years. It doesn't matter that you're the youngest. You've got to grow up very quickly. And I probably reflecting now, it was a bit of hard work, but I just didn't put enough of the hard work in. I think there's that thing this week on Chris Wilder from Sheffield United sort of said, you're still with that bloke in the pub. He said, I could have done this, I could have done it. I'll be honest, I probably did that for a couple of years because I just didn't put enough. I just didn't have the drive to. I just didn't have the ability to put all that effort in. And that was the thing. So I did that, and that guy Alan Davis was the one who said, "Look, why don't you need to do something?" And I was thinking, well, I'm going to be a professional rugby player. I'm fine. And he's put me in contact with Uwick or Cardiff Met as it's then known. And luckily I got my degree out of it. I played for again load of clubs on loan. Around the Welsh Valleys. I can talk to you about that all day. That's a whole other episode. I came back to Bristol, played for a couple of local clubs. Always said I was going to come home to my junior rugby club, which is St Mary's Old Boys. Did that. Played for Cleve. And anyway, during that time, I was working in I did that. I was at Cheese recruitment consultant for a bit. I worked in IKEA and working in for Cardiff Blues community team when I was at uni. Working with Dragons a bit as well, doing the community. I thought I love working with kids. I want to be I'll go back and be a teacher. So until about 16, 17 months ago, for the last 10 years or so, I've been teaching, working in pretty tough inner city schools in Bristol and Somerset around those sort of areas. And then my interest in working with young players, sort of 19, 20, 21, transitioning from those sort of under 18s to senior academy, because I suppose the stuff I've done with schools as well. I sort of set up it was a thing called Cabinet Federation Rugby or CLF Rugby, and it's working with kids like, I taught Ellis Genge, I'll just name dropping again, but kids like that who are not, private school rugby player, just giving kids an opportunity, whether it's just to eventually try and participate in the game, whether it's grassroots level, playing for, the third team, but just giving them an opportunity to show them like what rugby's about. I remember a couple of years, we took a load of kids up to, all week driving back and forth, shuttling kids back to Roslyn Park. And I remember, bless them, when we first did it, maybe 6-7 years ago, chatting to the people at Roslyn Park and saying, look, we want to bring a group of schools up. And they were a bit worried at the time because, all due respect, like, wait a minute, you could really strengthen, you could come up with a super team now. I said, no. We're just here to have a meal in Nando's, a night in London just to get out of Bristol. And the kids absolutely.
That sounds like Alice Genji's career.
That's absolutely great. Yeah. So Ellis is brilliant. So he's we keep in contact now. So Ellis, I remember teaching Ellis. They put me in his tutor group. Well, they put me in his tutor group with him as I was a trainee teacher. So I was in there, and he was brilliant. And I think we sort of had that mutual respect for each other. So even he's had his ups and downs. I've had my ups and downs as well. We always sort of kept in contact. And he's
I think we should do a whole episode on Alice Genj, not featuring Alice Genj, but featuring Matt Leek. I think that would be fucking superb. So listen,
yeah, but sworn to secrecy.
Yeah, no bollocks to that. Yeah. There are. Listen, what goes on the show
I was
stays on the
waiting
show.
for the term bollocks to come out. Finally.
So
how's it worked with you, with Alice wanting to set up this rival to the company you currently work for?
That's it.
Just asking.
We're having I suppose we have open, honest conversation. I'll be honest, we probably don't chat about that. He comes to me and speaks to me about his baby Rhino coaching business and bits and pieces like that. I think, to be honest, Ellis was the first person. Like, when I got offered this job or went for this job with the RPA, Ellis was the person I messaged about what do you think and what's your thoughts and this is the right move for me and I think that's probably where I am with my job now. I think it gets a bit cheesy, a bit deep at the moment, but I think if someone said to me, what is my job? What do I do for job? I am like a head of year. I suppose it's going out of teaching to this sort of thing, pastoral looking after, and they give as much to me as I give to them. I think, I'll be honest, we haven't really spoke about that. And that's good. I suppose we have a different relationship.
Talking about the RPA at the moment, where is your work, particularly with COVID and the lockdown and all of these clubs which seem to be trimming, and I hate to say this, colloquially, trimming the fat off, that they're reducing their squads. And we've had a number of players on this show, particularly championship players, where they're out of contracts and they've got nowhere to go. What's your work been around most recently?
We look after the 12 Premiership clubs, the club that's dropped down to the Championship, and then the England Sevens and the Women's 15s program. So, we look after the boys who are alumni of Premiership as well. But I think, to sort of allude to earlier, I suppose my role is like a head of year / careers advisor. I think that's been really important. So we run a program called the Gainline it's like a professional development program. Because as you guys are, there's a lot of ex-military on here as well. I think military and sport, it's the only career where when you retire, you've got to get another career, or there's another option out there as well. So I think that the similarities are huge. So looking to the last 4 or 5 months, or it feels like 4 or 5 years since you've been in lockdown, I think just someone to talk to. I think that's been really important. I think we've spoken to players. I've got over 120, 140 on my book, so I predominantly do Bristol and Bath and any of the alumni players as well, any new players coming in and that. So we speak to them as much as we can. We're always there. It's definitely not a 9 to 5 job. Those phone calls you get at 11:45, 1 o'clock in the morning. I've done that on a Friday night to a player up early, he's training.
Book me an Uber, I'm on the night out, says Ellie.
I'm not a PA, not quite like that yet. But,
no, you did say about it's talking to players, and I was quite interested there that you mentioned that the fact that you work with the Prem and the one that's gone down, and I'm a bit shocked that that doesn't exist within the Championship, but it just doesn't exist for us as referees at all. And I'm sure Wayne would have, on a number of occasions, appreciated somebody to talk to as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Wayne, do you mind telling people about your journey over recent months and years?
Well, being an ex-vet, cut long story short, I went to Bosnia when that was all on, come back, and in 2010, diagnosed with PTSD. Just before lockdown, it kicked its ugly head back up again. And I spent the first 5-6 weeks of lockdown actually on a mental health ward.
Wow.
Now, this is something that, you know, we don't talk about often enough, and there's a movement, there's a groundswell towards, particularly, and I don't like to separate genders or anything else, but particularly towards men's mental health, and that's because, and for whatever reason, men are not great at talking about their feelings, their emotions, and things like that. And I know, Matt, it's something you've been particularly involved with within the RPA. Wayne, you've talked to a number of guys who've set up support groups and things like that as well. How have you found that within the rugby community, Wayne?
Like you say, I mean, I've talked to a lot of you guys more than anything, but in the rugby community as itself, there's not really much about mental health on the mental health side. It's drop a name in the hat. Nigel Owens, he's well documented that he suffered from depression and all sorts.
I honestly feel that for people outside of, you know, Matt's work within the RPA, there's a void within the rest of the rugby community. There's lots of community things we can point to, but actually sometimes, well done, James, for dropping your phone. You fucking listen. We're on a serious point, and you drop your phone. Typical fucking Royal Navy. Now, you see, Wayne's well into the fact that we're just going to slag the Navy off now, but sometimes, and I've been on the phone a number of times and on chats with Wayne, it's not what he
Mike,
needs.
I'd like to just jump in. Sorry.
Yeah, please.
I don't know if it's a leg but I'd like to just jump in for one thing. So just over a year and a half ago, I started the Rugby Foundation here in the United States, but it's across the Americas, right? One of our pillars is to focus on health and wellness programs for our police, fire, military, frontline services people, because of exactly what Wayne was just talking about. It's really about how do we help get through and open a discussion and dialogue on looking at platforms to help them with awareness, helping them getting engaged, and also looking at ways to improve their lifestyle. In other words, getting them engaged in the platform of rugby as an example, whether they become a match official or a sideline person, or maybe it's to getting in play as a coach for youth programs, things like that. Keep in mind, in the United States, I'm using the US as an example, but you know, we're not a rugby community per se, right? Not like the UK is. So we actually have to expose society to what rugby is about and the ethos of rugby. So you can't just go out to talk to your neighbor and say, hey, using rugby. But that's exactly what we're trying to do, is expose the game of rugby ethos, but at the same time helping those who are suffering or have been exposed with health and wellness issues, whether it's trained professionals or these kinds of platforms where you can just have a discussion and build a camaraderie. And that's, being from an ex-police officer standpoint, it's a real hard thing for people to open up without going into their medical records. And that's another thing that's a real problem in the Americas. So I appreciate Wayne and appreciate other people who have, are open to having this discussion, because that's what we want to try to help with from a foundation standpoint.
I've just recently done Mind, charity over here, Mind, have just brought a thing out about sports, mental health in sports and that lot, and I've just done that. And it's a right eye-opener, especially when you look at 1 in 4 people actually suffer with mental health. So when you put that into the equation on the rugby field, it works out to about 7.2 people on the rugby field have mental health or a form of mental health. That's a big number when you look at it, when there's 30 players plus the ref on the pitch.
Yeah.
And it's not being discussed about as often as what it should be.
So we're actually looking at it as a way of just bringing awareness and helping treat, whether it's through a direct relationship with trained professionals or having this dialogue or getting them involved in community programs, and not all police or fire or military have a rugby background. So we got to also help educate them, even if it's for 30 minutes at a time, so that they forget what the troubles are for 30 minutes at a time. Is that we want to make sure that it's okay to start talking about health and wellness in the rugby community. And we want to make sure that it's okay to seek help and find people who have supporting mechanisms, whether it's through the Rugby Foundation or your local health and wellness, or maybe it's their camaraderie. And the final part of that is we want to look at trying to create a rugby esports platform so that people have another way of engagement, not just necessarily locally, but allows people of all ages, all genders, anything else to be able to people to say, hey, we can have a communication dialogue, and you can remain anonymous or you can build a relationship that way.
Listen, there's so many things like that, and particularly, and no disrespect to the RPA, I was surprised to find out they don't work with more pro players at championship level. So I think there needs to be something, and whether the RPA an extension of that, or whether we have to find another mechanism to help support people, support referees, support players within the sport of rugby. I think that's quite important. It's time for us to take another short break, but after this, we're going to carry on talking about this very important topic. Don't worry, the rumour will be here, and so will all those awkward questions for our guests. So whilst we talk about this, you can rest assured it'll be back to the same old shit soon, and we'll see you right after this. When you need clear and concise match official communication systems, look no further than the brand new AXIWE AT350.
Radios are always useful, they always help us, especially AXIWEs, where all three of us can be open at any time, we can have open communication.
Available now from refcomsglobal.net. Investing profits into match official development worldwide. Welcome back to part 3 of your favourite rugby show and podcast. We are, of course, the 22 dropouts that look more like the goal line 5 tonight, given that there's a number of us who can't make it. But that's the beauty of what we do. It isn't just about all of us. It's about everybody within rugby and refereeing as well. Now, we've had a very serious conversation tonight about mental health within rugby players, within rugby referees as well. And it's our absolute pleasure tonight that we welcome a young player who played 137 times to Wasps, went on to play for Gloucester as well. It is Tom Lindsay, and he's going to tell us about his story. Hi, Tom.
Hi, mate. How are you?
We're very good, mate. Very good. How's things going with you?
Yeah, I'm newly retired, so adjusting and looking forward to the season getting back on its legs so I can go back coaching.
Lovely. What are you going to be doing next season then?
I'm assistant head coach at the Bristol Bears Women in the Tyrrell's Premiership. So
I'll see you on the circuit then.
You probably will.
Listen, yeah, don't give me any shit. Now you know what I look like. I'm the weird one with the funny bald head and the slightly Batman thing just up here. All right.
Definitely give him shit.
Yeah, and the one that keeps dropping his flags.
Yeah. I've only ever dropped my flag at Twickenham. Why am I known for dropping my flag? It's only been once.
It was too heavy to carry.
Well, that's what fly boys are like.
It was probably, yeah, thanks, mate. Tom, now, apart from the fact that Matt says, will you come on this show and hold my hand? Because I'm a bit scared about these naughty boys that are going to ask me all this shit, which we've already done that. Tell us a bit more about why you're on the show tonight.
So Matt gave me a call today and asked me if I'd want to be on the show tonight and have a conversation about a serious conversation about mental health. And I can see that we're making light of it, which is good, which is really important. We want to make sure the taboo disappears, because around men it's very important. And I'm here to tell my story, really. Okay, so tell us what happened to you, because mate, you've had a fairly decent career, haven't you, as a professional player? Yeah. So as you said, I played for Wasp for 10 years. Very, very fortunately played for the England Saxons as well. When I was younger, I struggled with like binge eating disorder. So I was very, very bad at excess food, drink, all that kind of stuff. When I was at Wasps, I was struggling with my weight again there, got injured and like yo-yoed up and down there, which is very hard to hide. After I got back on the Saxons tour, I experienced some really bad bullying through coaching, and unfortunately I was the only hooker that could play. So I was still played a whole season, but was getting negative feedback every game, scapegoated for games, and that built up over time. Unfortunately, the anxiety and depression that formed throughout that season then slowly developed into my normal personal life. And I continued throughout my career from Wasp to Gloucester to Saracens to Bristol. And it'd only been the last 2 or 3 years that I really kind of worked out something was wrong. When I was at Wasp, I tried to speak to one of the coaches, but he said to me to probably keep it quiet just in case the first team coaches found out. And that obviously didn't help. I was drinking a lot. I was going out 2-3 times a week just to try and numb that pain and numb the feeling of emptiness I had every day. And I was just trying to deal with it however I could. And I was seeing therapists, but wasn't working from now and again. And then last November, I really hit rock bottom. I was in a really bad way, started developing a lot more symptoms of like fidgety. I was slurring my speech. I was paranoid. The anxiety was going through for 4 games. I'd have to sit in the shower for an hour or so, like beforehand, just trying to meditate and trying to get rid of the paranoia in my head and like making up things that were probably going to happen on the field, just over worrying about everything. And that kind of that came to head in November. I spoke to Matt with the RPA and I got help that I needed. I got the counselling I needed. I went on antidepressants, which leveled me out loads and helped me a lot. I still battle with it daily when it comes to binge eating and my anxiety and depression, but I take every day step by step, taking positive steps and having awareness of when I am going well and knowing my triggers. And I kind of make sure I take day by day and acknowledge the good things that I do and the good relationships that I have. So on the topic of men talking, it's you wouldn't judge someone for having a broken leg, but just because you can't see what's wrong with them doesn't mean there's nothing wrong. And that judgment needs to be reined in a little bit, and an understanding needs to happen. And I think there is a generational problem with it, I believe, just because the old stiff upper lip of the generations before us, and it's getting better definitely, but still amongst men, it's the biggest killer of men between the ages of 25 and 45, suicide. So it's got to be something that needs to be done. And I think the more normalised we make it amongst the rugby circles, and I'm already doing stuff with kids now and helping educate parents to, once you get the parents involved and on board, it's easier to talk to the kids then, because essentially when you're coaching children, you only see them an hour and a half, 2 hours a week. They're with their parents the rest of the week, and if that can be helped with them, it's going to be driven through to them. So I help out as much as I can on podcasts, webinars, and Q&As, just to give my experiences and how I dealt with it and what gave me the courage to go and speak to someone. And that's kind of where I am today.
If only you could see the messages that are coming through our group chat at the moment. And they're all pretty much about the same thing. Is, look, it's well documented that you've had your struggles in the past, but particularly the bullying, and that it happens in refereeing. And I'm sure as you know very, very well, it is a high pressure environment. Every move that you make, every decision that you make as a player, as a referee, you are judged upon. Your image as a player or a referee, you're judged upon. Your speed over the ground as a referee or a player, you're judged upon. All of these things do cause, whether we like it or not, or whether we appreciate it or not. And some people take that to heart a little bit more than others. Some dismiss it and maybe just fleetingly bring it up in their subconscious every now and again, like, I must eat a bit less, I'll have 1 pie this time instead of 2 pies for lunch. And others, I can't say I was the same, but I basically got told, you lose half a stone or you're out. Thankfully, I'm no longer with that coach. I did it just to say fuck you, because we had a clash of personalities, but nobody should be in that situation where one other person can determine your future based upon whether they like you or not. The bullying that you had, it's extraordinary, and I'm from the bottom of my heart, I'm very, and hopefully things like that will or have changed, and I'm certain with the work that you're doing, with the work that Matt's doing, those things will change. James, you've experienced something similar as well, I believe.
Yeah, difficult to say this. Not many people know, but Halloween last year, I had just about enough. Suffering a lot of pain from a very serious road traffic accident I had many, many years ago, but I was being, and still am being, bullied by people in the rugby fraternity as a referee. These are people that you should be able to speak to, and I couldn't. Halloween last year, I swallowed something like 50 paracetamol and 28 duloxetine. The only reason I'm sat here now is because my partner came back 5 hours early. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. In a rugby changing room, when you're playing, as a referee, you don't have that changing room environment. You don't have the support teams around you. You've got your society if you're lucky. Well, I wasn't. I'm of an age where you didn't talk. I decided I'd had enough. Like I say, I'm only sat here now because my partner came back 5 hours early. I would have left my two boys. They're only 20 and 21, and that wouldn't be fair. They've both got decent rugby careers in front of them. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I've got mates, don't get me wrong, but it's not the sort of thing I would have picked the phone up and told them about. So, yeah, I've been there. I fully empathise with you, Tom. I really do. I know where you're coming from. That black dog that runs around with you is not a nice place to be. It really isn't. And we do need to talk. I found out I can talk now, but at the time I couldn't. And that is something that is, it's the first time I've actually really spoken about it in a wider context. And that's because, as you've all said, it's something that needs to be brought out, and it's something that needs to be spoken about. I've been through the counselling, I've been through the psychotherapists, but at the time I didn't have anywhere to turn. And yeah.
So James, I'm going to come to James, Wayne, and Tom specifically on this, and anybody else, please feel free to jump in. James is right in many, many ways. The difference, and Tom, no disrespect to what you went through, but the changing room, most referees go into refereeing because they've finished as a player for whatever reason. Either they were shit like me, or shit and injured like me, or because it's come to the end of their time. But it is so lonely as a referee, and I want to talk about it from this point of view. This is a podcast by referees for anybody, but referees are the only guys out on the pitch that are never expected to make a mistake. A player is, it's a wet ball, or it was a crap pass, and it was just the pass was a bit late, that's why it was forward. The referees are the ones that are never allowed to make a mistake, and we are made to feel like that from players, from coaches, and from spectators, and that takes its toll emotionally. And ex-military or not, people deal with things in different ways. So James, Wayne, Tom, what can be done? Matt as well. I know Matt's remit is very, very tight in many ways, and the last thing he wants is another 463 people on his books. But what can we do globally, and I talk globally within the game, not across the world, what can we do to make sure that players who are feeling like Tom felt, for referees who are being bullied or persecuted, who are being talked down like James felt, or Wayne, who's got different issues that are manifested by problems in their life or injury, as Wayne found it very, very difficult when he couldn't go to rugby because of his injury. What can be done? What would you guys like to see? Wayne, let's start with you. What would you like to see as a mechanism or support or something within the rugby fraternity that could have helped you?
Well, for a start, like you said, I'm ex-military, so I've got different scenarios going on.
You're ex-artillery, so you've got loads of issues.
Well, all right then, flyboy. Look, at least I've never dropped the flag whilst running. Look, going back on a serious note, I've had a couple of the guys from the society who's rang me up. I mean, you're one of them, Mike. I know, Chris, you've been asking how I've been and all that lot. But we need a hell of a lot more support out there. There isn't the support. Specifically, the charity Mind, they've just brought, as we spoke about last time, there was the sport and mental health in sport and playing games or whatever it was that we done. that's been made free for UK coaches as well, no matter what sport you're in. And it highlights a hell of a lot that needs to be done within sport itself, let alone just in rugby. You need people there that not necessarily know what they're talking about, even if they just sort of like, if you notice someone's down or something like that, just ask them the simple question, are you all right, mate? That's the icebreaker.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's not just as a particular signpost like towards mind or other things. It is all of us. And it's all of us taking an interest in each other. Sports people, we're selfish. We're all about our own performance. And, you know, you just look at the way Tom was judged. You look at the way referees are judged when they're assessed. Nobody ever says, you were brilliant at this, you were brilliant at that, you were brilliant at that, and I want you just to be a little bit more brilliant at this part. It's all very negative. And perhaps that's a global thing that needs to change. But, you know, there's got to be something, there's got to be somebody that you can turn to and be comfortable turning to and saying, I'm not feeling great. And it's not a physical thing, it's something else.
I think for me, as a referee, there needs to be somebody like Matt within every union, because then you've got somewhere to go to. Where I was, there was nobody to turn to. I couldn't go and say, this is happening to me, what can we do about it? There was nowhere for me to go. As a referee, you're very vulnerable. You can be accused by a team of saying something or doing something that you haven't done. They've got 15 or 20 guys there that can turn around and say, yeah, that happened, when it actually didn't. Because we're not always mic'd up, we're not always videoed up, we're vulnerable.
Isn't that sad though? Isn't that from a global game point of view and the way that the game has potentially gone, isn't that so sad?
It is, but there's, as I say, there's absolutely nowhere. I don't know of anywhere. I've refereed in 3 unions. I don't know of anywhere within those 3 constituent bodies where I could have taken what was happening to me and got support. You could have a northern Matt and a southern Matt.
You could.
And a Midlands Matt.
It's not, absolutely.
You do it through 3 constituent bodies, through your northern group, your Midlands group.
Maybe.
The way I was going to say was why every society should have someone that they can turn to say, look, I'm struggling, I need help.
Or
not necessarily just one person.
Maybe we've now got match official development officers in each of the 6 regions. Maybe that's our first port of call. Because tell me, guys, did you feel better talking to a friend or somebody who was a stranger?
That's, in some respects, that's hard. That is a hard question.
James, would you feel better talking to a friend or somebody who might know you professionally within refereeing, but you might feel uncomfortable, you might feel comfortable? Would you be better talking to somebody unknown?
It's a difficult one, that is, because if I'd have said something to some close friends, they'd just said, stop taking a piss, you know, get over it, trying to be good, but by the same token, not really understanding. If I'd have gone to somebody within a union, if I'd have known there was somebody like Matt there for referees that we could have gone to, that might have helped. That might have been a stepping stone that gave me the furtherance of being able to talk to somebody like Tom was able to. You've got to speak to a professional, because if you don't speak to a professional, you're never going to get over it. So for me, I think a first port of call, if there'd have been somebody within the union that I could have spoken to, or there was a point of reference, then that's where I would have gone.
Tom, from your point of view, listening to what we've just said, and James and Wayne particularly, about how it affects referees, what do you think? I know you've had a good experience with the RPA and with Matt. What else would you like to see within rugby?
So I've got a few friends that are referees. I'm friends with Richard Hornton, James Clark, Sarah Cox. So I saw Sarah Cox last week at International Women's Referee.
Listen, mate, seriously. Stop name dropping. Matt's way ahead of you. He's already dropped 18 names today. So you are nowhere near on the radar, mate.
So I spoke to them about an initiative between getting coaches, players and referees involved together, uniting and helping each other out. So something I want to do going forward as a coach is to make sure I've got a rapport with my referees that are in the league, discussing how we can upskill each other, what I want to see, what language they want to hear from me, For example, if a referee does make a bad call in a game, it's a question of why they made that bad call. Was it a lack of understanding? Was it the heat of the game? I'm not going to hold anything against them. It's just, I'd rather them get better. And mistakes, you can't get better unless you make mistakes.
No, same as any player, isn't it?
No, exactly. It's part of being human.
All for dialogue. On the whole, we're all for dialogue, and we don't mind people sort of questioning why we made a certain decision. But it's when people start then getting down your throat about it, making something out of nothing, is when it starts to affect us, because that's when we start going, actually, was I wrong? And then you've now got 15 players on your back, and then you're thinking about that conversation and that interaction all the way travelling home. Now, if you're on exchange, that's sometimes as big as like a 3-hour journey on a Saturday night when you're tired. It's not ideal. So like you say, the dialogue is very important.
Yeah, so what I'm saying there is I'm talking about games on the Saturday, obviously depending on what level you're playing. On a Sunday afternoon or Monday, I'd be sending through some clips or footage from the game before previewing, discussing what we were both doing. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm happy to go in and see referees and vice versa. That's my one thing I think would definitely help. Second thing is anyone that's involved in management when it comes to refereeing or mentoring refereeing, everyone should be doing a mental health first aid course, understanding how to identify the cues, what are the big signs, how to have a dialogue with someone, how to ask open questions. Or because sometimes if someone goes, "You're right, mate," you're like, "Yeah, I'm fine." No, I'm absolutely dying inside. I thought about killing myself 3 times yesterday. No, you've got to be. It's a case of how was your week the last few days? What did you get up to this weekend? It's about slowly opening a dialogue and gaining trust. The last thing is, like you said, is having someone in each society or having someone that they know is there completely anonymously to be able to talk like Samaritans, but someone you know that's part of a union where you know you can get help from there and you've got backing. So those are the 3 things I can see going forward, and it comes from the playing point of view as well. And I've got experience with referees as well, and playing and coaching. So they all can be aligned. I don't think it needs to be us, the players, and the referees anymore. We're all one union, be it the SRU, the WRU, the RFU. If we want this game to be better and we want to go forward and keep pushing towards that vision of a whole entitled rugby union, then we've got to make sure we look after everyone, not just the players.
Wayne, I know we've talked about a service called Marshalling Men's Minds, which is run by Nick Marshall, who's an NLD, or former NLD ref and Championship AR. How did that go? Has that helped you as well?
Yeah, I mean, I've spoke to Nick about it a couple of times. It's a good service. I mean, I'm also doing, at the moment, I'm counselling as with Rock to Recovery, which is it's run by ex-military. It's former commandos that actually started it up. It's tough. In life, I mean, things get tough, but when you're having to then dig into the stuff that really sets you going, having to talk about what affects you, it really does it gets deep. And having people to talk to about it, yes, it helps, but then in some respects, it also, you've got to get worse to get better.
Listen, Wayne, Tom, James, something we didn't know about you, and you've been with us for Christ knows how long now. I don't want to make light of the situation, but it's about time we did the rumour mill, and we talked to Tom and we talked to Matt about some of the really important things in their rugby career. Before we do that, I know we've probably gone on this show way too long, but hopefully you're still with us, because it is so important what we're talking about. And it doesn't matter what level of rugby you're interested in or where you sit within the rugby community. This is something that affects every one of us in one way or the other, and each of us takes this and deals with it in a different way. So we're just going to take a short break, but when we come back, we are going to ask Tom and Matt their best rugby pranks and what's on the rumour mill tonight. We'll see you straight after this break. So welcome back to part, whatever it is now, of the 22 dropouts. I think it's part 4, but it is a very serious night, and hopefully you've stuck with us. Now we are about to get into the serious part of the night, which is things like the rumour mill. But first, before we do that, Phil, I know what we've talked about over here. You've sort of been trying to do that, or you're getting a long way through that over in the States, aren't you?
Yeah, it's. I mean, we recognize it is an issue. Despite what's going on in society, this COVID-19 is actually only exacerbated the health and wellness problems that are probably going to be never foreseen prior to the pandemic, and more importantly, the lockdown and the quarantine mentality. In sports, we recognize, you guys have already talked about this, having to perform at a higher level, always under scrutiny. Now we got to start thinking about the commercialization of what's going on and the impacts on the, if a game gets lost because of an error by the decision makers, et cetera. So whether you're a player or a match official, we've actually started implementing mentoring programs and leadership programs to help try to pin younger people with older people on trying to make sure they have that aspect of being able to talk to somebody who's working within the ranks, but also at the same time giving them a way of hopefully feeling comfortable about being able to talk about, well, I'm feeling the pressure of the situation. Maybe I'm not ready. What is down there?
Right. So one of the things you may have noticed is Christopher always puts his phone, which is on Zoom. And I hate to interrupt you here, Phil, but it's so funny. So Christopher ledges his mobile phone just on his laptop, which, as you can see on screen now. So then whenever he needs to tell me to fuck off, which he's just done on the group chat on Instagram, what he does is his little fingers crawl forward to his keyboard, which just happens to be about here on his camera. So, Phil, anyway, now Christopher's ruined your really important point.
It's going to get worse before it gets better. I believe it was Wayne who was mentioning earlier, sometimes it's got to get worse before it gets better. So we were talking about mentoring programs, leadership programs in the Rugby Foundation, but we also do, we're working on education platform, which individuals can help also recognize. Sometimes it's way better for people to recognize that they have a health issue before it becomes a serious issue and being able to deal with it earlier, right? We've also got to focus on getting past this whole negative stigma about being able to openly talk about something that's bothering you in life. Whether it's your parents or whether it's your coach, whether it's your teacher, whether it's whoever. I think is we got to get past that stigma. We got to say that it's okay to talk about it. And we want to be able to say, we want to be able to provide platforms, whether it's a Zoom call like this, or maybe it's a one-on-one therapy situation with a professional. A total stranger may work as well, right? The final thing that I could bring onto this is counseling. You have that professional side of things. You have your unprofessional side of things, meaning it's not actually going through a therapy platform, but more of the dialogue. And then hopefully the mentoring, education, and leadership training programs. If you look at it, here we are having a discussion. I don't know, what are we, 6,000, 7,000 kilometers apart, and here we are having a discussion about this. That's the problem. That's a good thing.
Having that discussion is exactly what we need. And sometimes you don't want to necessarily have the discussion with the guy who's asking you if everything's all right. And one of the reasons is because the reason it's not all right is the person who's asking you. You may disagree, you may have a personality conflict, however it manifests. And sometimes the culture, you can't tell the person who is potentially responsible for your career. And I think this, Tom probably feels this as well. If that's the person that's the one that's on your back, if that's the person that's the bully, it's really difficult to say, well, yeah, the problem is you.
Going back to what you were saying and that, the last time I actually refereed was September, I think it was. You know what I'm like? I'm there every week and I'm on that pitch. Me missing rugby for near enough a full. Well, it's going to be over a full year now.
It will be, yeah. And the thing is, Wayne, though, we talked about this, didn't we? Because Wayne's got quite a nasty injury that that he's been battling through, and it came to the point where Wayne and I had a serious discussion, and we said, for your physical health, it's not worth you carrying on at the moment. You need to get that problem fixed, because it is screwing up everything in your life, not just your rugby, which I know is such a lifeblood to you, but also your work and your home and everything else like that. So when it came to working on the Athlete Factory World Series warm-up last October, there was no way Wayne could run. So we said, Wayne, we want you to be involved. You're still part of our team, and we want you to come along and do some training, and we want you to run the technical zone with somebody else. How did that make you feel when we said that, and with you still being part of the game, Wayne?
I enjoyed it, to be quite honest, yeah. I enjoyed it, and I felt like I was still part of the team. Because of my injury and that lot, it meant I couldn't do what I wanted to do, but even so, just being able to participate.
The idea was that you're a good lad some of the time. And we wanted to keep you within our family, because to us, within Sevens Ref, it's a family. The same as it is with Phil with Back 10 Pros, it's a family, and we look after our own. Now, I am being nagged for time, and I am very aware that this is probably the longest you've ever listened to the 22 dropouts. I admit it's probably the only decent thing we've said in 16 weeks. But Matt over there, pulling on his lockdown beard, has been quiet for far too long. So, Matt, we're going to come to you, and I'm going to give you the most serious question you're ever going to be asked in your professional career, and that is, what's the best practical joke you've been involved in rugby?
I'm gonna have to have a little think about this. I've got one which is probably a little bit controversial at the moment. So I'm gonna nominate Tom for this one very quickly.
Oh!
I'm gonna nominate.
That's the first nomination we've ever had. I'm impressed.
I'll come back to me. I'll think of it. I know. One is pretty controversial. I don't know.
I've got two, so I can give one to Matt and I'll take one to myself. It's not about you. It's not about you. The first one is more player related. So obviously, every time you go on a camp in the summer, or you go on like an away trip, or you always prank the boys around their bedrooms and stuff like that, because you're so bored as well. So I remember I thought I was rooming next to Joe Simpson, who plays for Gloucester now, was at Wasp with me. So I went into his room, I turned his bed upside down, and I made it with the mattress on the floor. So it looked really convincing. I didn't realise that he just swapped. So I was in the physio room, and I heard a big commotion, and Ashley Johnson has carried into the physio room. So he's jumped back on the bed and he's put his back out. I still never told him to this day, but
you have now.
He slipped because of it.
Ashley, if you want to come on next week.
No, he'd love that. My second story is one of my mates at uni, who's a rugby player, his missus cheated on him. And I knew her friends through a friend. So I knew where they lived and stuff like that. So what we did was we went around to theirs when they were at lectures one day, and we got a big dog shit, froze it, we melted a load of butter, poured it into a jug, put the shit back in, poured the butter back in, and put the butter in the fridge and left it. So,
I'm not coming to the UK.
You know how long it takes to go through butter? It'd have taken them a while to realise there's a shit halfway down it.
So come on, Matt. It is no time. He has dragged you out of the proverbial poo and given you some thinking time.
I won't talk about the fire alarms at Worcester in the halls. I won't. That's probably some sort of legal. When we were in the academy, they decided to put student nurses, because Worcester they're quite a big health faculty at the university campus. But to calm us down, they thought it was really sensible to put a load of student nurses and a load of academy rugby players.
Oh dear!
What idiot thought of that?
Imagine.
Seriously,
How many pregnancies?
Great times. So the first, it works with me. I think going back into community rugby. So I coach at a club in Bristol. I think you guys might have been. You might have refed it. There's a Cronus Under 21 festival up in on Bank Holiday Monday. It's at Richmond, London Scottish Richmond Rugby Club, and so we went up there with my community rugby club, and we got linked to the school, and we took on the 21 team up. got them on the beers, and I decided, this is maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, and I sort of decided to have a run on with the tour game the day before. I managed first ruck to slice my ear, and it was like hanging off. Just taped it up, went back on, took it off afterwards. Yeah, as do, and it was literally like seeping with blood, it was pouring out blood, and they said, "Oh, you're going to have to go to the hospital." What I didn't know, this was the time Ebola was, I think, one of the nurses or was someone who UK was brought back to the UK. I know Tom will know this hospital well because he's from that area. So the Royal Free I was taken to the Royal Free, and I had a few pints in me by that time. And there's me in a rugby kit, bandaged up, and there's like a load, probably 6 or 7 news cameras at the front. I did not have a clue. And it's me bundled up, literally ear hanging out, there's blood all down my face. And there's my mum and I'm getting a few texts there. Mum and dad are like, "Where, are you all right? I've seen you at hospital." It dawns me afterwards that there's me literally going past with this. The worst thing. So I think, new dad at the time, hadn't been out for a while. Not away from my now ex-missus. So that night I had a stripy blue and white top on. I had this like bandage around my head, like something like from the 1980s rugby. I looked like Mr. Bump from the Mr. Men. All right, so I was going out.
Next time you come on, I want to see a t-shirt and a bandage.
In Infernos, Tom, yeah, that's it. In there's me trying to draw my night out. People are looking at me, going, "What is this bloke all right?" I'm like, "No, I'm fine. In the end, the bandage come off, and I was like, "Right, just literally glued up, stitched up." It was still pouring with, like, still blood seeping out. But I was adamant at going out with it. I had to go out. So I don't know how the bouncers got in. So that's probably not a great story, but it's probably the cleanest one I can legally say now without incriminating anyone.
Well, while you're on the subject, it is time for this week's rumour mill. So, Matt, we always come to the guests first, and just because you've got... No, mate, no. You passed one. You're not passing twice. So, because you gave Tom the shit, I'm coming to you first, and I'm going to ask you, what's the biggest rumour in rugby you've heard this week?
That's it. I've got to be careful, because obviously, with my job as well. I think last week I could have probably said anyone to Beziers would have been a big deal. So...
Yeah, I fucked that one up as well, mate. It's gone, hasn't it? Béziers has gone. And I think the best comment was the French Competition Authority or somebody has moaned about it and asked the consortium to prove some more financial worth. And the spokesperson for the consortium has gone, "This is a broken second-hand car, an overpriced broken second-hand car. We will not be lectured by the owner of the car that it is more beautiful than it really is." And I thought that was a wonderful statement. Béziers is an overpriced, broken second-hand car that the seller thinks is more beautiful than it really is. Professionally speaking, all those people that were going to Béziers, where do you think they're going now? You're next.
Tom Lindsay, Matt Leek in a joint deal to Bezier, I think. You could probably just about afford us, can't they, Tom?
Oh, I don't know about that. Maybe me, not you.
So I've heard as well, I don't know about rugby transfer. So again, being involved with a community rugby club, you guys might know a little bit more. So we've got a date for mid-September to start our fixtures at level 8, level 9. Now, this is the next rumour. So the rumour today from the RFE, is it we're having no contact when we start? Is that the next thing? So this is the rumour.
Rumours, truth and statements mean little these days. I'll be honest with you. And I said this to a mate earlier on. And if you're at Longton Rugby Club in Staffordshire, the former level 5, I'm going to name drop you now so you can all say hi and you can all watch the show. I can't see Longton 3s turning up to a local derby and somebody going, "You can't tackle, you can't ruck, you can't scrum, and you can't maul." They'll just go home and drink beer.
No, they won't. What they'll do, if that was Longton versus Newcastle, for instance, they'd just knock 10 bells out of each other anyway.
Yeah.
Isn't that just the point? If you get 3 people from one rugby team and 3 people from another rugby team, and they start throwing the ball around, within 5 minutes, they're going to start hitting each other anyway. They're going to bump into each other. How many times have you done non-contact or shoulders on only? You're not going to do it, are you? Oh, just touch each other.
Already doing contact now. That's the.
Yeah.
Already doing it.
But the thing is, in the Premiership, in professional rugby, they're paying Christ knows how much for the testing, the swab testing every week.
And
that's
staff.
not going to happen at your local level 9 club, is it?
They're being guinea pigs, and I cannot see a teams going back to playing rugby without doing contact. It's going to be very, very tough.
You just wouldn't, would you? To be fair, Matt, if you were a level 9 team or level 8 team and you're playing for the second or third 15 and you're 40 years old and somebody says this is how you've got to check. Yeah. A bit like me. And this is how you've got to play rugby from now on for the foreseeable. You just go, yeah, no thanks.
Well, it might suit us because we're probably like everyone. We all struggle for front row, so it could be great. But then
we've got glass shoulders, glass backs, glass legs, and glass knees.
We've got a 65 kilogram tight head, haven't we, Tom? I think that's going to be interesting. When it comes to player retention, I think it'd be really interesting. That's the biggest rumour. So I think for me, trying to be on the good side, apart from talking about Beziers and stuff like that, I think, but I've that's been on our chat all night. So we've had these community fixtures in the conferences ready to go, and then kind of get this thing here at the moment saying, actually, are we going to have no scrums, no rucks, no mauls, no tackling, no contact? And it's kind of it's gonna be really interesting because I get it in a way. Local rugby clubs need the revenue, need the beers being poured behind the bar.
Absolutely.
And we said as well. I've seen it when I've been coaching the last couple of weeks. Boys players just need that to get out and get some sort of normality back into it. And
you've got a little bit of an update as to what might be going on with return to play.
I've heard today that it'll be the second window before level 3 down gets to play.
The NCA, which represents level 3 and 4, had a conference call or a webinar with Dr. Simon Kemp from the RFU last week. And they were talking about various things, and one of those things was the way that they're testing within professional rugby, and the sort of things that could happen or might need to happen within the semi-pro game. Phil,
yes,
he's got to sleep.
Hawaii is going to join the Western Conference. Phil, when do you want me to come out and help with the training of the referees? Because if there's a week in Hawaii helping some referees, I'm available for really good rates.
That makes 2 of us.
Hawaii is not going to be too hard of a lure, I don't think, for people to take a little vacation R&R in a training session, right? I mean, if I
can stand with a stopwatch and do Bronco tests for your referees in Hawaii.
You can do the Bronco test yourself.
I can carry bags.
Yeah, you carry bags. I'll carry the stopwatch.
There's no job that we're not willing to do.
Chris, are you willing to wipe all the referees' bottoms if it's a week in Hawaii?
Absolutely.
Phil, there's more, isn't there, within the MLR?
Currently, there's 13, 14 clubs, depends on how we want to include somebody. There's obviously the expansion to get it to an even number of 16 cities. There's a lot of discussion about Vancouver, a city that rhymes with Vancouver. And then there's a discussion of whether the city that rhymes with salami or Miami, as they would say in Spanish.
Crockett and Tubbs.
They're the 2 props.
Yeah, so just to clue that in, though, there's discussion on Chicago. There's discussion on there's one in St. Louis, the central heart of America. So there's at least five cities that are looking at doing it. I know that the rights have gone out for 3 of them. We
talked about this last week, and we all had a look out of the window in Brooklyn over the bay to Manhattan. And we'd all love to be there because, we talked last week. It's easy to buy players. It's easy to buy Chris Robshaw and Bastereau and everybody else. And they are exceptionally experienced international rugby players. But you have to have quality referees who can be bought in. We're all
no,
available.
not you, Chris.
Put your hand, put
we're
your
all about
hand down.
Anyway, listen, we have gone on way too long, and it's not because we've just waffled tonight. We have covered some incredibly serious topics.
I've got a quick rumour about MLR.
Yeah, you can wait till next week. And we've got less than a minute, and I've got to do the goodbyes anyway. Anyway, goodbye from me. Goodbye from our guests, Tom and Matt, who are going to wave to the camera right now. Goodbye from the what is the 22 tonight. Please make sure you tune in next week. Go back on YouTube, check us out on our social media, and we'll see you next week. Thanks very much, guys. Bye-bye.